AI.
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 Artificial intelligence. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Bernie Uche and I'm in a tech state of mind. Today, we're gonna talk about the topic that is on everyone's lips.
AI.
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 Artificial intelligence. And why did I say 2 decades? Well, I say that because it may be the buzzword right now, especially when we think about generative AI or Gen AI. But artificial intelligence as a concept that we have been thinking about as human beings is not actually new at all. It goes all the way back to the 1950s when you think about Turing and a bunch of other scientists who came up with theories around whether machines can learn and input and implement the way that human beings can. We can go all the way back to talk about that. We'll talk about modern day implementation of AI, future use cases, what you need to be concerned about, and the impact on us as a people, economically, socially as well. And we'll talk about whether or not Skynet can happen. And how we're going to do that is we're going to actually let the AI do the talking, and then we're going to overlay our thoughts on top of that. So what I've done here is I've put ChatGPT to the test, asked it a bunch of questions, and let's see what we get, and let's give our thoughts on those points that ChatGPT will give us. All right, so let's talk to ChatGPT, and let's see what ChatGPT thinks about artificial intelligence. What is AI according to ChatGPT? Well, it says AI or artificial intelligence refers to the simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, especially computer systems. It involves tasks such as learning, reasoning, problem solving, perception, and language understanding. AI technologies include machine learning, natural language processing, computer vision, and robotics, among others. So as you can see from this definition, we're really getting into computers and machines replicating functions that human beings undergo on a regular basis. That's when we get into things such as learning, right? So getting exposed to new pieces of information, understanding that information, and putting it into practice, maybe making mistakes and changing over time. That comes with training your systems. Look at things like problem solving, right? You give it something to solve or to interact with and to make sense of, and it can do it. Now, AI will do it based on how it's been trained, which is not really fundamentally different from us, right? You're only able to solve advanced mathematical equations because someone taught you how, unless you are Dr. Manhattan or someone like that, right? Perception and language understanding. This one is great because we're seeing this particular use case being used more and more by travelers, right? You can watch a couple travel vlogs. I think Mr. Who's the Boss tried to do this in, I forget what country it was, where he didn't understand what was going on. He had his phone processing the language that was being spoken by the individual on the other side and do a translation and then actually speak to the person on his behalf, or it could provide him prompts that he could use. So you're seeing AI do these things which are very, very human-like functions. So it's all about the simulation of those human intelligence processes that really makes AI AI. So let's see what we asked it next. So as you can see, and I alluded to this earlier in the video, I asked what was the first instance of AI being used? And that's a very interesting question, and I think that opinions may vary. So As we can see, ChatGPT says, the concept of AI dates back to ancient times. Ancient times. I wonder how far back we're talking about ancient times. Are we talking about the ancient Egyptians, the Romans? What are we talking about here? I'd be curious to understand, but I'm not going to prompt it to tell me what it means. But the modern era of AI began in the 1950s, right? And this is something I alluded to with Alan Turing, but the people mentioned here go a little bit further. So one of the earliest instances of AI being used was the development of the logic theorist by Alan Newell and Herbert A. Simon in 1956. It was capable of proving mathematical theorems and is considered one of the first AI programs. So you can see that we've been thinking about this and leveraging this for a very, very long time. It's just the form and the ability of the systems that we put into place has changed a lot over time, right? But we have been thinking about this over time, and maybe this is why, children's cartoons like the Jetsons from the 60s had AI. Remember Rosie? We have been excited about AI for decades, and we're really starting to harness its power now in 2024. So I thought that was pretty cool. All right. So we asked ChatGPT as a follow-up, what are the most common, current, and assumed future AI use cases? And it did spit out a long, detailed list, right? And we'll go over a couple of them. Natural language processing. These can be seen with AI-powered chatbots, virtual assistants, to conduct sentiment analysis and language translation. Machine learning in finance, we're seeing it used in finance to do fraud detection. This is a really, really big deal because now you're seeing a lot of people trying to get at your money using advanced techniques, and where humans might fail, AI is doing the business and can be a bit more, turned on and ubiquitous in addressing these things. When I was interviewing at IBM, I was asked to do a stand and deliver exercise, which is effectively a 3-minute pitch of an IBM product. And in that interview, when I was doing my research for that interview, I had chosen Watson Analytics because of its use cases in healthcare. I had understood that there were some pilots being done to identify instances of cancer before they became critical. And as someone who has lost a family member due to cancer, this was very important to me. So I am all for usage of AI for healthcare diagnoses. I think it is critical. I think it will help us identify ailments faster. And we all know that if you're able to identify certain ailments, especially cancerous ones, earlier, chances of survival skyrocket. So I am all for this, and I really hope that we can accelerate adoption from here. I have access to a full self-driving beta for about a month or so, which is now expired. But while I had it, I took full advantage of it because I wanted to see what was going to happen. And of course, if you think about it, just as we talked about the definition of AI, full self-driving is only possible because the systems in the car have been trained on what to do. So someone multiple times or multiple groups of people in these cars have gone on these routes time and time again, and trained the system so that it could understand all possible permutations or almost all possible permutations that could happen on the road. So now they're able to identify traffic lights and act accordingly, and identify things like speed limits and so on and so forth. Now, I experienced this firsthand when I was driving to a conference. I didn't know it could do this, but I had turned on the full self-driving capability in the car. And what the car did was, I think I was going 110 on the road, and it didn't just stay behind the person in front of me. It actually switched, turned on the indicator, switched lane into the fast lane, passed the car that was ahead of me, and then when it felt it was safe, moved back into the middle lane to leave the passing lane for someone else who was speeding up. I thought that was terrific. I didn't realize that it could do even that level of autonomous driving, which was very interesting. And I think there's a great use case for this. Now, you have to be aware and you have to be the human in the loop that can override in case of an error or if you're not comfortable. But I thought this was really, really good because where you don't feel like driving, maybe where you're feeling a little bit just not at ease, maybe you can let the car do its thing while providing oversight in case of an emergency. And I thought that was a really cool experience. I no longer have it, but I don't really mind because I do like to drive by myself. But I thought this was really cool and a sign of the future, especially when you think about robo-taxis. I think there was a movie, Total Recall, by Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he had a robot taxi driver. And this is in the 80s, I believe this movie was made. And they were already thinking about that. And we're just now getting to the point where this could be possible. And this is going to open up a lot of doors and a lot of room. Now, I remember watching a video where Elon Musk has said that you could have your car serving as an advertising board running around the city for you autonomously while you're at work or you're at a function making money for you. And I think that could be very, very interesting, although the thought of our world becoming even more of a marketing domain than it is an interesting thought. But you also have to give thought to perhaps the end of the taxi industry and what happens to those people. And that is another thing that we'll talk about later in this video, which for me constitutes a major concern when it comes to AI. I think that AI has the opportunity to close the wealth gap, but I am nervous that it's going to exacerbate and blow that gap up even further. And I'll tell you why that could be the case. For me, when we think about the wealth gap, you're thinking about certain countries who are not competitive on the global scale for a bunch of different reasons. A lot of them have one thing, which is cheap labor. And if they get themselves together, they'll be able to harness that cheaper labor and bring things like manufacturing over and take those away from, say, more developed countries where labor is more expensive and compete on the global scale. But if AI is able to do the more mundane, manual, repetitive manufacturing tasks faster, cheaper, without having to take breaks, for example, we think about sort of advanced robotics, it could bring the price of manufacturing locally to a point that is even lower than outsourcing it to, say, other countries like China and India and so on and so forth, which could present a massive problem for those countries, but also other countries that are hoping to replicate that China-India formula, right? So I think we need to be careful about this. And I asked ChatGPT about this, and ChatGPT said the impact of AI on the wealth gap can go either way. It has the potential to exacerbate inequality if not managed properly, as those with access to AI technology and the skills to leverage it could amass even more wealth, which is what I was referring to. However, if AI is used inclusively and policies are implemented to ensure equitable distribution of its benefits, it could help reduce the wealth gap by creating new opportunities and increasing efficiency in various sectors. So this is where it's talking about regulation, right? And I know the EU is working on some regulation. We'll find out what that's about. I think it's more on the privacy side of things, but could regulation help here? Maybe. I know our society doesn't like regulation as much, but who knows if that's the right way to go. But it is something that we need to start thinking about. And I know some people have talked about, well, if AI is going to do all the work, it's about time we bring in universal basic income. I don't know enough about the effects of that and whether or not that's a viable solution. We'll have to wait and see on that. But these are the things that we're going to need to think about, and corporate entities are going to need to start thinking about this as well, because what becomes the future of the employee, right? Okay, so last question I've asked ChatGPT is a bit of a fun one, although maybe morbid or depending on who you talk to. But one of my favorite movies is Terminator 2. In fact, Terminator, the first original Terminator, is absolutely brilliant. But Terminator 2 was one of the first action movies I watched as a kid. And maybe I shouldn't have watched it as a kid, but I did. Now, in these movies, Skynet, which is advanced AI set up by humans to actually protect us, grows a mind of its own and turns on humanity and attempts to wipe us all out. I believe the year was supposed to do that was it 2004, 2007? I'll check it up and see what year that's supposed to happen. But that is gone, and Skynet has not happened yet. But the question is Skynet a possibility? Can it actually happen? Can the machines turn on us, right? Once we let them loose and give them all the information that they need. If you think about AGI, can that turn into Skynet and ruin us all? And ChatGPT says it can't happen, like of course AI would when it's trying to get rid of us. But this is what ChatGPT has to say. It says Skynet, as depicted in the Terminator movies, is a fictional super intelligent AI system that becomes self-aware and launches a war against humanity. Correct, you got it. You know the premise of the films. Now, it says, while the concept raises concerns about the potential dangers of AI, creating a Skynet-like scenario is highly unlikely in reality. However, there are valid concerns about the ethical and safety implications of AI development, which researchers and policymakers are actively addressing to ensure AI systems are designed and used responsibly. So, ChatGPT is saying that no. Don't worry about it. We've got this under control. Humans won't let this happen because human beings are not going to set AI up to take humans out effectively, right? I think that's the argument here. And I understand it. I'm still not convinced yet. Well, we shall see. Now, I also asked Gemini this question. And Gemini says, while AI is rapidly advancing, a Skynet scenario is very unlikely. And here's why. And it talks about goal misalignment. That real-world AI development focuses on achieving specific goals set by humans. We design AI to be aligned with human values and goals. So it's saying a similar thing to ChatGPT. But you can also see that it says here control mechanisms. That similar to ChatGPT, we are developing AI with safeguards and control mechanisms to prevent them from exceeding their program capabilities or harming humans. And I find this really interesting, right? Because it's saying here, we can effectively pull the plug, although Sam Altman said there is no plug. But Gemini tries to expand on this a little bit and saying there are still potential risks. And they soften them a little bit, but they are extremely important. So it talks about bias, saying that AI can inherit biases from the data it's trained on. Mitigating bias is a crucial area of research. And as Black people, we have seen this, right? There's a video that I'll link to in the description below where a couple years ago, visual recognition software could not tell that a Black woman was in fact a woman. And that comes from how the system has been trained. But we can also over-index on that, right? And I believe Gemini's image creation DALL-E competitor at one point was presenting historical figures as Black, even if they weren't Black. So we can over-index on that, but we can also underrepresent groups in these systems which are indicative of bias introduced into the systems. So we have to be careful with how we do these. And one of the things that we can do is have diverse people in the room to ensure that they are represented and to ensure their cultural norms, behaviors, features are represented, because you have skin in that game as well. But this is an important factor, absolutely. But it is very interesting that Gemini introduces this as something that we need to be aware of, almost to suggest that self-aware AI cannot happen, so don't worry about it, but here are the things that we need to worry about right now. And that's fair enough. I think it's supposed to say that. I think we've trained it to say that. But let's see where we go from here. the next question becomes, how do you prepare yourself to take advantage of the opportunities that AI will present? And I go two ways. I had a student who I was teaching in a part-time course that I teach, and he had no AI knowledge whatsoever, and he just dove in, read as much as he could, started playing around with all the services from OpenAI to Dora, to DALL-E, to Sora, and whatever else he could get his hands on. And he has become an AI consultant just by getting his hands dirty and playing with the stuff and learning how to prompt and doing all those things. But there are great prompt engineering courses that you can take. I've looked at a few. I'll link them in the description of this video for you. But if you're in industry and looking to, say, transition into tech, as you know we like to deal with on this channel, there are certifications that you can also take. With one of those certifications being Azure AI Fundamentals. I looked around. I know that there are some courses from the other players, but what I was really looking for was something that you could take that gave you a certification. And with Azure being the second largest player in cloud computing, you can't go wrong with going through a course, whether on Udemy or LinkedIn Learning. I will link below to the one that I've been looking through to complete my certification. And then going through and getting a certification at the end of the day, especially one as respected, as well respected as an Azure fundamental certification. This is something that you can put on your resume and people will take you seriously because you've got it. So I would start learning and start studying for the Azure AI Fundamental certification. Get it, put it on your resume, post about it on LinkedIn, and start letting people know that you have this new skill set. And then do some courses on prompt engineering and so on and so forth to get up to date with how to prompt ChatGPT, Gemini, and the other services out there as well. So I hope this has helped you understand AI, generative AI, my thoughts on the current situation and the future. And I hope to see you in another video. And if you like this video, please make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and let me know if you disagree with anything I said in the comments, or if you agree with me as well. I'll take that, and just general feedback. I would love to hear from you. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.